In my last couple of videos, we've been exploring how minimum wage laws cause unemployment by holding the price of labor above the market rate, which prevents the market from clearing. The involuntarily unemployed person is someone who has essentially been priced out of the market by government and unions. We looked at Mises' explanation for why price controls that attempt to hold prices below market rates lead to shortages, as marginal producers exit the market when production is no longer profitable. He used the example of price controls on milk. We also saw how once the state interferes, it must continue interfering to hold the structure together. If the state puts a price ceiling on milk, capital and labor shift away from the milk industry. To keep output going, the government must prevent those inputs from fleeing. The market's spontaneous order is replaced by state directives, and the deeper the state intervenes, the more totalitarian its methods must become. Mises also mentions an alternative. Rather than fix prices, the government could buy milk at the market price using tax revenue and then sell it cheaply to the poor. He doesn't explicitly say this leads to totalitarianism, but praxeology leaves no other conclusion. Every intervention distorts prices, triggers unintended consequences, and invites the next round of controls. Taxation still results in capital and labor moving, this time towards the production of milk or whatever the state spends on, by creating artificial demand. By diverting resources from the voluntary sector, government spending distorts market signals, reducing the production and availability of those goods and services people would have chosen if allowed to retain their income. I like to refer to this as the Bastiat blind spot. This general loss of wealth further drives redistributionist policies. And crucially, even in sectors heavily funded by the government, supply is often restricted. It's not just third-party payer problems, as with healthcare, it's often regulatory capture and union entrenchment as well. The result of artificially high demand chasing limited supply is not abundance, but shortages, waiting lists, and declining quality. And that's assuming the industry hasn't been fully nationalized, which of course only worsens these outcomes. As misallocation grows, the private sector contracts. People come to rely more heavily on the state's provision of goods and services, which reinforces dependency and weakens individual initiative, and once again, moves capital away from private organizations and voluntary associations. You get more of what you subsidize. The more government dependency people are forced to pay for, the more there will be at the margins. Once forced transfers for the poor are accepted as legitimate, it becomes politically difficult to oppose state expansion in other areas. After all, the moral precedent has been set. Political authority then grows as perceived moral necessity. The state must act, or else who will feed the children? This narrative becomes self-reinforcing, turning what were framed as emergency measures or limited programs into giant permanent fixtures of government power. And when spending is ostensibly for a vague ideal like security, healthcare, or the public interest, there is no natural ceiling. No one can say what proportion of the individual's productivity should be seized by bureaucrats and politicians in the name of open-ended causes like social justice or poverty relief. And there will always be a crisis, and more votes to win, and just one more bureaucracy to build, and just one more reform and budget increase needed to make it all finally work properly. All of this raises society's time preference. As Rothbard wrote, the taxpayer's real income and the value of his monetary assets have been lowered. The lower the value of a man's real monetary assets, the higher will his time preference rate be, and the higher the proportion of his consumption to investment spending. He continues, the effect of income taxation will be to raise time preference ratios and reduce savings and investment. Time preference is how forward-thinking people are, how much they are willing to defer consumption. Having a high time preference population means less investment in fewer long-term projects. It's a perfect recipe for a poor, highly state-dependent population and large government. There is no moral response to poverty that involves coercion. There is no means of using the state that will not eventually lead to an expansion of its power and an expansion of what is perceived to be its legitimate role in society. The end point is always the same, the centralization of power and the expansion of the role of government, which eventually becomes totalitarian.